Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to talk about Highlander The Search for Vengeance. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. The film begins with a man on a boat in what appears to be an abandoned jungle, or an abandoned city that has been flooded and overtaken by trees. That appears to be a football stadium. The man then jumps into what appears to be an abandoned structure filled with zombies. The area is packed with monsters, chilling and eating by a fire, but it doesn't take much to scare them away. Here he meets a beast named Malik, who mistakenly believes his chains so can defeat a sword. Our hero, Colin, rapidly dispatches with his head, and then, for some unexplained reason, a massive flash of light appears. We are then transported back in time to what looks to be the same city. We meet what appears to be our primary villain, who appears to be a rock musician or something based on his attire and the fact that he has a guitar. We return to Colin as he crosses a bridge. He is disturbed by several unpleasant guards and their robots. Colin looks to be a bounty hunter, which our villain seems to dislike. Colin is being delivered to him in a secure convoy. We learn that a horrible virus killed almost 80% of the population and that the vaccination is the only thing keeping people alive. Colin, understandably, escapes before meeting his new companion, a little boy called Joe. He is directed to a seedy tavern where we are introduced to Dahlia. We jump back to Colin seeing a woman similar to Dahlia named Moya in what appears to be the Roman Empire after it fell. Colin used to be a courageous and respected leader, we discover. This is also the point at which he declares his love for the new woman. Colin and his troops will be destroyed by a massive army headed by someone named Marcus Octavius. They share a drink, but his cup is laced with drugs, and he passes out. Moya then moves on to Marcus Octavius, who resembles our previous favorite rock star. Moya promises to sleep with Marcus in exchange for saving her people from his army. When no one is watching, she stabs Marcus, who is bleeding out on the floor. The only genuine surprise here is how he missed that one. However, in an unexpected twist, Marcus does not die. He captures Moya before she runs away from the camp and ties her up, forcing her to watch his onslaught on her people. Colin awakens only in time to see his men slain. He tries to pick up a sword, but is in no condition to use it, and he becomes stuck beneath a collapsing structure. His army is not faring any better, and they are destroyed. Colin, on the other hand, endures the debris of what was once his people. He notices Moya hanging from a crucifix in the distance. He runs to her, maybe believing she's still alive. She's barely holding on and makes Colin promise not to pursue vengeance. He hesitantly accepts right before Moya dies in his arms. The twist here is that Colin promises to take vengeance. We return to Colin in the bar scene. He follows Dahlia to safety inside a damaged chapel as the cops are looking for him. She then tries to recruit Colin's assistance in saving the city. Then we see a government-controlled region with several government officials discussing further expanding their power. Octavius is the commander, and he is pressing his scientists to develop more hazardous weapons. As Colin hides in a ruined subway, the cops scour the city. A hidden door takes them to a rebel hideaway. We discovered that the vaccination is only given to those who live in the tower, and everyone else must make do. Dahlia supposedly brings Colin to a residence so he may pay to have sex with her. Colin declines her knowing there are ties attached. Dahlia urges him to assist her in stealing vaccinations, so Colin leaves her apartment. We join up with them above ground, where Colin discovers that Marcus has been governing the city. We see Colin again in the past, this time attacking a Roman garrison. He murders a guard and puts on his uniform. Colin sneaks close to Marcus then, but he's outnumbered and quickly becomes overwhelmed. Marcus challenges him to a fair combat in the middle of a field, and the two charge at each other. Despite his best attempts, Marcus severely hurts him and ends up chasing after him as he flees. Colin falls near what appears to be Stonehenge. Believing he will die, Marcus abandons him. His wounds finally heal, and he wakes to meet Ptarmigan, a spirit who informs him he's immortal. Colin does not believe him and thinks he is hallucinating, until a lightning bolt strikes him, revealing that he is in fact immortal but not invincible as he's told. Armageddon informs him that the Romans have long since died, but that Marcus, who is likewise immortal but more stronger than Colin, is still alive. Armageddon tells him that immortals gain strength by killing other immortals and absorbing their power in a process known as the quickening. Also Colin, being immortal, will never be able to bear children. Colin still seeks vengeance, and we return to present times. He's now more than eager to assist Dahlia in infiltrating the tower. The two penetrate the facility, which is like a maze inside, through a concealed entrance. They come upon Joe, who insists on accompanying them. Joe's alarm goes off, arousing what can only be described as a massive crocodile-like beast. But Colin dispatches the creature quickly, beheading it, and rescues Dahlia just in time. When the three come upon a patrol, Colin leaps in rather than waiting to sneak in. He effortlessly dispatches the guards before the party stumbles into what appears to be a laboratory. Dahlia arrests them all at gunpoint and forces them to give her the vaccine they're developing. One of the top scientists is acting suspiciously. They've actually been developing a super virus that can't be vaccinated against. These criminals were evidently behind the epidemic, and Dahlia knocks the weird-looking guy out. Colin detects Marcus and leaves the other two to battle him again. He uses a massive elevator to get to him, and we get a flashback to Colin in the past while he does so. Charging inside what seems to be a coliseum, he detects Octavius and confronts him. Octavius delivers a lengthy speech before the two exchange blows. Colin is once again no match for him. Some troops storm in, driving Marcus back just as Colin is going to be decapitated. We then cut to another battleground, and another. Every time Colin attempts to find Marcus in order to exact his retribution, he fails every time. Every time he creates a new life for himself before dying for vengeance, he finally resurrects and tries to do it all over again. One time, he is ambushed by men who actually saw his death and try to kill him. He is only let off the hook when their leader stands up for him. This is how he got the nickname Highlander. He wants to exact his retribution by reliving his life for 1,000 years. When he faces Marcus in Japan, he is once again no match for him. He survives this time because a collapsing structure separates the two. We also see him as a pilot in World War I climbing onto Marcus' plane just as it is about to blow up. He reawakens in a chapel on sacred ground, where Marcus cannot touch him. Colin should do something different with his life, according to Marcus. We return to the present day, where Dahlia and Joe are still attempting to flee. Dahlia manages to escape to safety, and Colin confronts Marcus once again. All of his strikes are easily avoided by Marcus. Marcus hurls Colin through a window and slashes him with his sword. The two then resume their fight on the building side before Marcus tosses Colin off the top. He lands just in front of Dahlia and Joe. As Dahlia checks on Colin's lifeless body, Joe leaves with the vaccination. Colin comes back to life just as she is ready to depart. Dahlia takes his shattered body out of the building as Colin explains why he's here and why he wants to kill Marcus in the first place. Some guards who shoot at them almost stop the two. Before fleeing, Dahlia blows up the tunnel with a grenade. She collapses on the ground, reflecting on how much Colin has been through. We see Colin in his imagination conversing with Armageddon. Colin stands beside her grave while Armageddon talks about how Moya has reborn over the centuries, but he has been too focused on himself to notice her. Her soul is currently in Dahlia. Colin awakens in their hiding place. Everyone is surprised by his recovery, but it gives them hope that even the impossible is achievable. Everyone is prepared to fight their oppressors. Dahlia does not want Colin to fight, but he does so anyway. We return to Marcus, who discovers that the newest killer virus is now faulty. He dispatches his troops to put down the insurgents. We see Dahlia in her chamber as Colin comes in to see her. He praises her for what she's done for him, and Dahlia expresses her desire to fight despite the fact that she is not immortal like him. The two then make love. I'm sure you saw that coming. Anyway, while Dahlia sleeps, Colin locks her room to keep her secure. As the rebels look on, the government army patrols the street. Colin claims that killing Marcus is the only way to win, while the others must buy some time. Joe reveals another secret door to the tower. The fighting begins, and Dahlia wakes to find herself confined in her chamber, but she ultimately escapes. As Colin attempts to re-enter the tower, he encounters a small army. He sneaks by before Marcus's assistant notices him from her helicopter. There is an explosion, and he exploits it to escape, but he is pursued by the assistant. Dahlia manages to knock her helicopter out of the sky, killing her in the process, or so it would seem. Dahlia buys time, and the two declare their love for one another. As Colin approaches Marcus, the rebels fire on a massive armored tank. Dozens of rocket launchers all aim at the tower, where Marcus and Colin face off at the top. Unless Colling intervenes, Marcus swears he will use the virus to murder everyone in a matter of minutes as he puts on the timer. Colling is definitely outmatched in this encounter. As time passes, Colling fails to deactivate the virus in time, and Marcus impales him. Meanwhile, Dahlia is impaled by the assistant, who has miraculously resurrected. The virus begins to kill all of the rebels. Before she dies, Dahlia shoves a grenade into her mouth, killing them both. Colling understands she's died and musters the last of his strength to stand. Colling eventually gets Marcus on the back foot before cracking his sword and taking his head off, thus killing him. Both the tower and the army are destroyed by shockwaves, and the virus is eliminated by the quickening, rescuing the remaining rebels. Colling lights a candle for Dahlia in the closing scene. The end. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, if you like the video, share some love by smashing that like button.